the sound of white noise again.
Free socks.
Let's go! Go, Jets, go!
Winnipeg is back in the big leagues and over the moon.
Welcome back to the landing strip, brought to you by From Financial. And as it says in that little intro video that Mikey cooked us up, Winnipeg has to be over the moon right now with this Winnipeg Jets team. An 11th straight W. This one in completely convincing fashion. Past, a slow start in that first. And a lot of good. And on a night on the Sportsnet broadcast where we're going to discuss the panel a little bit, a lot of good stuff was said about the Winnipeg Jets. We're going to dive all into it after another big win against the Ottawa Senators. But I don't want to do this alone. Mikey, how you doing tonight?
Man, how could you not be doing good after that? That was another Winnipeg Jets performance. This is the team we've been able to come to expect this year. And it doesn't matter if it's prime time on a Saturday night or a random, Wednesday in the middle of the week against Ottawa. They're exciting to watch, and they just keep adding to those wins.
They do. First, I'm going to give a shout out to the chat. I see Formally says, nice to see you both on time. I hope the bugs are worked out. I'm a sound guy. I'm able to help in the future. How does it sound on your guys' end tonight? I know my mic's been the one that's been lower ever since coming back from this break. All of our presets that had us feeling pretty good before the break, we're trying to figure out where those were. So if the sound sounds good today, give me a thumbs up and we will keep it going here. Let's start this off. First period. Wasn't a Jets. It wasn't a Jets team I've recognized in some time. Very loose defensively, which is not the staple of this team at all, but still had that offensive flair to them where they jump over a mistake. Vlad forces Tim Stützle to turn it over, and Nick Ehlers sends it all the way to Perfetti backdoor to open this thing up. And then you get the rush goal, where the Jets this year have become a lot better when scoring off the rush. And I think that's made a big difference into some of the offense you're seeing. We've talked a lot about how we'd like to see them generate a bit more when they get sustained time in the zone from that slot. This team on the rush has been pretty dangerous, and we saw Mark Scheifele chip it up to Mason Appleton. Mason Appleton, who finds Nino for a partial break. And then Mason Appleton comes in to clean the garbage. I think this is a game where we're going to actually enjoy what we saw from Mason Appleton. I know it's a back and forth convo, and Formally says, Appleton haters be gone. I thought this was a nice night for number 22 as that deadline nears. What stood out to you the most in this one, Mikey?
Before we even get to that, I think we missed something. Winnipeg Jets won a game today. I think we got to celebrate a little bit. I know. We don't got our friend J-Pix in the chat to remind us. So J-Pix, wherever you are, this is still for you and for the whole chat.
11 straight wins.
Gotta love
Incredible. That feels good every time. And thanks to an email from one of our listeners, shout out Mike Friesen. We might bring you guys a couple new intros incorporating the win song, Sack Squirtle. And we're looking at doing a little mix of a losing song to start off this show. So I'm going to open that up. Got a great email today from Mike Friesen, who listens to the show. We appreciate your support, Mike. If we know the chat's pretty limited sometimes in what you can say, and I love that we're getting to talk with all you after every game and get to share ideas with the chat. If you're looking at and you want to see something bigger picture talked about and be a feature on the show, feel free to send us an email at toplinemedia@gmail.com. Mike Friesen did it. It was a nice little surprise for me this morning. Some stuff we'll dive into as the show goes on from that. But let's add another way that this fan group can be a part of this show and dictating the conversation. But past that, after a really rough first period, I thought, where they leave that period still up 2-0 despite not being at their best, I was looking for them to tighten it up defensively, and I thought we saw that quite a bit. The second period was a significant step forward for this team. They leave it 3-1. Kyle Connor scores that goal after just an incredible shift from the top line and the top D pair. I mean, Gabe Velarde created 3 great chances with his net front presence alone. In that shift where he goes to Mark Scheifele, doesn't go. Then he creates that one-timer look for Dylan DeMello. It doesn't go. But third time's the charm. He finds Kyle Connor, makes it a 3-0 game. Credit to the Ottawa Senators who take advantage of Nick Ehlers' turnover in the neutral zone and go the other way for Tim Stützle to find Thomas Chabot for the short side top corner. That second period, though, was a big step forward. I think the big takeaway a lot of people are going to have coming out of that is the frustration of the 5-on-3 and that extended 5-on-4.
Yep.
The power play coming out of the break has kind of stagnated a little bit, looked
Quite
a
a
little
bit.
bit less movement going on. Looked a little bit or quite a bit like last year's version of the team. Now, this could be rust coming out of the break. This could be not having much practice reps, but that's an area that's been so strong for the team this season. I confidently tweeted that it was game over when you see a 2-minute 5-on-3 for this group. So that part was disappointing. The second PP unit should have probably gotten some 5-on-3 ice, especially when they were creating the best opportunities in that 5-on-4 after. But from the second period on, this game was all the Winnipeg Jets, and that's what you want to see. You come out of a period that you didn't play your best. Your goalie makes some big saves. It's a little loose. It's a 2-0 game, and then you want to step on the other team's throat. And I thought the Jets did that all the way through the back 40 of this game.
Yep, absolutely. Choices TK over on Twitch says it best. Difference in this team and the last couple of years. When a desperate team like the Sens stepped up their game, the Jets oftentimes would have trouble finding that next level to match. It doesn't seem to be a problem this year. This is the difference, right? You would have these type of responses from a team in the past, and the Jets maybe would kind of start to bend and crumble a little bit, whereas now they can absolutely just match it and keep going. They're not out of any game, even with a rough start, even with a bit of a shaky defensive start, even when finally the power play isn't going. You know, is it rust? Is it just that they haven't had time as a group because of Four Nations? Is the rest of the league kind of catching up to what the Jets do? You know, it's hard to say. We'll kind of see what the trend is over the next little bit. You know, there are some extenuating circumstances, right? A 5-on-3 is a very different type of power play than your regular 5-on-4. There's a lot more of it being a kind of stagnant spot where you're not moving as much. You're just trying to get the passes through to find the hole. Whereas the Jets, their normal power play setup is all about motion, right? So it's, you know, there are some things there, but yeah, the last 4 games, they're, I think, 0 for 10, 0 for 11. So it's not just tonight. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll give them a little bit of time. They've earned the grace to, you know, have a couple bad games like this, but if it keeps being a problem, it's something they'll have to address.
Hey, you know what the rosy way to look at this, and I think this is a thing because we were talking about it a lot earlier in the year when they were on some of those streaks, that the power play was carrying them through some of those at times. They just won their 10th and 11th games without contributions from the best power play in the NHL. They're finding ways to score. They're beating teams off their rush.
Yeah.
They're getting garbage goals in front, and that's a positive. So as they go
100%.
through this downspout, and it was never gonna be multiple percent over the record that Edmonton put up. I mean, there's always going to be a downside at some point.
It'll average out.
It'll average out, and they're still winning games. So just think about if they keep this going, what that looks like when that thing activates again, right?
Honestly, the big takeaway I have from this game that kind of relates to all of this, and like I kind of just briefly touched on it at the very beginning there. You know, this is a random Wednesday night in the middle of the season. We're past, you know, what was used to be the All-Star break, but the Four Nations break. We're past all of that stuff. Deadline's coming up, but it's not quite here yet. This is supposed to be the kind of like doldrums of the season. And you're going up against a team in Ottawa who's missing like 3 of their, you know, kind of top guys. And they still come out and, you know, they've got fights going in the first period. They're scoring quick goals. They're going to the front of the net. They're still doing all of the things you want a playoff team to be doing, even when it's, you know, when it would be a little bit harder, right, to get up for this type of game, you would think. And I was just so impressed that that fight is still there no matter what the game is. And you want that. You want that going into the playoffs, that level of consistency. So, yeah, it was all around. I think it was a great effort from the Jets.
To put a bow on the power play conversation, Rye Guy makes me laugh here with Ken Viagra. Ken Viagra fixes Jets BP right now. But on what you're talking about there, I do think that's a sign, and we've seen them talk about it. We've seen how they play. We've seen how jointed they are this year. That physical element, Choices TK over on Twitch says the physical play focused them and woke them up. That was a very sleepy start. We saw Shifley get that knee on knee in which he tried to avoid the contact with Zub. I could kind of see why that wasn't called, given how that played out. I hate to see a knee on knee. Yeah. I blew my ACL at 20 years old with a hit like that. Like, it's a hit I would just like to see gone from my own personal experience. But you see, Logan Stanley automatically dropped the gloves. Now, it might have been the biggest hug I've ever seen on an NHL ice surface. It was kind of cute. Yep. I felt like I needed a big hug after that one, just for the vibes lately. But you saw that response, and that matters. That matters. And then you saw Adam Lowry immediately when he saw Mason Appleton get hit, just load up the right fist like it was a semi-auto machine gun. And it was just like bang, bang, bang on Clevin. And it did seem that once you saw your emotional leader, your tough guy in Adam Lowry, have that response, get in there and kind of lead by example. It seemed to be a bit of a shifting point of the Jets waking up in that game, finding their game, and like Max says over on Twitch, making the Ottawa Senators look like an AHL team for the better part of 46 minutes after a slow start.
Yep, completely agree. Yeah, we've got a first-time chatter over on Twitch. Thanks for joining in. ICK Jets fan 221. They're wondering, should they wear white heritage or a blue heritage jersey at the Preds game at Bridgestone tomorrow? Sounds like they'll be in the arena.
Ooh, I'm a big guy on the blue heritage. I love that blue heritage. Have fun at the arena. That should be a blast. Maybe make it 12 straight against the Nashville Predators. Force them. Maybe after that game we take some of those guys off the roster. Right. I'm going with blue heritage. Where are you going?
I'm gonna go with Big Papa and say go with the white. Jets are gonna be wearing whites on the ice. Throw the white heritage jersey on to match the boys out there. But you can't go wrong with either. I've got the blue heritage jersey hanging in my closet. It's my favorite Jets jersey. Period. I think that's just my absolute favorite one. But I'd go white for to match the boys.
Hey, we put it right back into ICK Jets fan 221's hands with the dual sides. And I'll just throw this out there. How cool would it be if we see those heritage jerseys come playoff time?
Oh, I want it so bad, man. That would be absolutely just stunning.
Something to potentially watch for. But back to the hockey itself. Let's go over to the chat. And everyone's pumped. Jay Coyne says he hugged the shit out of that guy. Formerly, that's a Toronto Sports Network, it looks like, or formerly used to be Toronto Sports Network, says hugs at me, and I appreciate that. Turd looked at that hug as remembering when Andre put Hulk in a bear hug at WrestleMania, almost ended the Hulkamania. Stanley knows what he's doing, so hey, he learned from the best.
That's right.
I see Slick McGuire, and we're gonna get into the hockey here. I'm just buzzing to be here and talk with you guys. Pretty cool story for the crowd. We've been doing this post-game show this year, and you remember earlier in the year when Slick called in from Europe at like 4 a.m.?
Yep.
Slick McGuire is coming down for the first round, and I promised I would take him to game one. So I'm looking for it. Look what the show does. Look what this show does. We're bringing Slick from Europe to game one to experience the whiteout. Slick, thanks for being here. I'm looking forward to when you're down. But let's go back to this game a little bit. You have the slow start. You settle in. And then you just dominate. This team continues to give you more and more reasons to not only believe in them, to think that this could be the real deal. I know at this point last year, we had made the moniker of the Fraud Squad, and we sold some Whiteout Fraud Squad merch. We might have to rebrand this as the God Squad, the way this team's going. As of today, just over a week out from the deadline, how do you feel about them breaking that first round curse we got going? This team does feel different this year.
I had to stop and take a beat when I turned the broadcast on and the panel was talking, and offhandedly somebody on the panel goes, "So we've got the number one team in the NHL, the Winnipeg Jets, and da 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 da." And it's still hard to. I still have to catch myself every once in a while and go, "We're the what? Oh, that's right. They are the number one team in the NHL by any metric you can really pull." Right? It's something we haven't really seen in a consistent basis like this in years and years and years, right? So I'm feeling really good. I feel like this is the group that you really want to push with, not just because of the wins, not just because of the points. It's the way that they're doing it. It's the way that they're playing. It's the way that they're finding ways to win games when they're not playing at their best. It's the way that they're finding ways to beat the best teams in the league, the lower teams in the league. They've just been able to kind of consistently apply their game to each matchup and let the other teams try to adjust. Whereas, in the past, it always felt like we were the ones chasing, we were the ones adjusting. It's a different feeling, man. It's a different group. And if they go out and get them some reinforcements, a little bit of help, some extra bodies for this playoff run, I think we're looking at something special.
And this was a really good example to me. Like we spend a lot of time focusing on which lines we're going, and normally there's 2 or 3, and then there's one having a down game, or there's the decor, there's one pairing going, and you're worried about 2 things. I thought this game was a real good example, once the Jets settled in, of getting contributions throughout the entire lineup tonight. You get a goal from each of the top 3 lines, right?
Yep.
You get that Connor goal, you get the Perfetti goal, and you get the Appleton goal. So your top 9 all contribute on the score sheet tonight. But this is also a game where I thought the 4th line had a really strong game and just didn't put the puck in the net. I thought Alex Iafallo looked awfully confident with the puck on his stick tonight. You saw that play, I think it was the second period, where he walks out off the half wall, dangles, and gets a couple of shots. Yeah. You're seeing Kupari really use that speed more effectively, though I gotta say, it was so funny to watch him go offside in the third. I know you missed a lot of the third. Yeah. The Jets had control in the offensive zone, and Kupari came up and was working along the blue line, and he just took it over the blue line and brought it back in himself. Just like being him, it was funny. It was the most Kupari offside ever. But I thought that group showed again the level of depth you want out of your 4th line, the type of game you want out of your 4th line. Yeah. And again, big guts bust guy. I thought he was doing everything right, in on the forecheck, just making space for his lineups. It was one of those games you truly saw impact from all 4 lines. And then on the D side, I thought this was a solid game from that third pair. Yes, even Logan Stanley, as much as we'll make jokes about the big hug, I thought that was a quality game from that group. I thought Sandberg, this was maybe his struggle of a game that I've seen in a while. And still, they come about 50-50 on the metrics. And it was more early on. He seemed out of it, and they were kind of found it. And then Morrissey and DeMello just keep doing what Morrissey and DeMello have found for some time now. This was a full – and Connor Hellebuyck, despite a 4-1 game, despite what we're talking about dominating for the 46 minutes after, Connor Hellebuyck has to come up big early in that game to keep it 0-0, 1-0, 2-0. So this was one of those games that after winning 10 straight, after coming out slow, you really got a full buy-in to get this win. And I think that's huge as we continue to build forward here.
Yeah, absolutely. The contributions from the entire lineup is, again, that's something that you really want to see on a deep playoff team. The Cole Perfetti breakout season continues. I told everybody, I told y'all, and I love to say I told you so. So, it's going on. It's happening. I told you the points would come. He's Cole Perfetti now. It's wonderful to see the points finally come because he's been playing well the entire time. Kyle Connor gets the goal finally after the break. Like you said, the 4th line didn't put anything in the net, but Alex Iafallo might be the best 4th line player in the National Hockey League.
I'm in there. I like that.
That's my maybe it's not even that hot of a take, but that's my take. Is I think he might be the best 4th line player in the National Hockey League. So, man, all the elements are there. I'm telling you, it's a special group. It feels special.
And as Choices points out over on Twitch, and I'm now looking at the standings, the Winnipeg Jets moved to 9, or is it 11? Is this updated? 9 or 11 clear of the Stars, which is pretty insane. And then four more on top of Mini from there. The Central Division is all but locked up. At the way the point system works, it would take a colossal falling for the Jets not to be the first place team in the Central this season, which is big. And now they're 3 up on Washington as well for that President's Trophy we keep talking about. That's where you want to keep building on this is, I think, the Winnipeg Jets' best pathway. We've talked about how I do still have some concerns about certain matchups. If you could avoid those matchups and control home ice throughout the playoffs, it's another massive stake and another thing that this group should be proud about, that they're putting the numbers out there to back up being a contender. So much so, we got an intermission segment today about whether the Winnipeg Jets should be all in. I saw Marchese from Sportsnet tweeted something like that, so they brought it on the air. Did you catch the segment at all?
I missed that one. You're going to have to fill me in.
Honestly, I hope Kevin Cheveldayoff did not watch the segment at all, and I hope he didn't take any notes on the segment. It was clearly an intermission for a broadcast that does not pay much attention to this team over the bulk of the season, and we know that's true. We know that's true mostly, right?
Yeah.
We got a full love-a-fest from Sam Constantino on Neil Pionk being the key piece to this whole Jets team, and the anonymous guy that's putting this team over. Right. And then they show the highlight reel, and he chips it off the glass to a guy, and Cosentino almost blows his load on national television with, "Look at that sauce off the glass." I'm like, come on, Sammy, let's settle down a little bit. And then there's a play at the end of the highlight reel where Pionk turns it over up the middle of the ice, but the sentence guy was a half second late, so it's an offside. And Constantino's like playing it up like he planned that. Like, look at him make that play into the offside. I'm begging him to watch 82 games instead of spewing bullshit to a national audience. That was tough to watch. But then they get into this conversation from Marchese where it's like, should the Jets go all in? This team looks like a team that, if with an ad, they become even more of a juggernaut. With a swing, they do it. And if you've listened to this show, you know that's what I believe. Mikey, I know you believe that. I believe a lot of our audience believes that. And I'm listening to this stuff, and it's like, Gadsdick wants Chevy to swing on Mario Ferraro and Luke Kunin. And I'm like, okay, I'd rather light up shit on my doorstep and have to deal with that mess.
Yep.
And then Sammy was feeling the Jets day, which is obviously exciting if you're a fan to see the Jets get so much national love. But then he's going all in on the Shens are going to put you over, and you got to go get both Shens and what they'll mean. And I'm not going to dive too much into that convo. If you want to hear my take on the Winnipeg Jets going after both Shen brothers, the last landing strip has a good segment where we discuss the pros and the cons there. And then Jen Botterill was also talking about just adding depth. And I will continue to hammer home. I think that is the wrong play. And I hope Cheveldayoff looked at those guys and laughed the way I did.
Yeah, that segment screams, researchers who don't pay attention to the Jets for the full course of the season had to put a segment together in about a day. It's not the right moves. Those are definitely surface level things that I can understand how that makes it onto the broadcast, right? But if that's where the Jets end up going, I feel like there's going to be a lot of disappointed fans come playoff time.
Lucas Strapp loves it and says, Neil Pionk is the anonymous man in the league. That's what it was. That was the quote. And it's like, this was the guy that was getting Team USA hype despite probably not belonging there. So it was one of those segments you could tell they don't pay attention to this team all year like the rest of us. Craig Zamzo, though, asked another question because the Jets have been a hot topic on different Sportsnet platforms today, and rightfully so. But Marchese had asked Jason Bukala if the Winnipeg Jets have the assets as far as prospects and picks to make a big swing.
Yeah.
And Jason Bukala really believes so. He likes a lot of the different pieces in the system. To Craig Zamzow's point, he says, do you buy a top 6 for Reshevsky brought up by Bukala? And that's what my big takeaway is. A couple of shows ago, I had suggested that I'd heard that there was a belief within the org that there's momentum that they're going to get Reshevsky over. I do think that's a thing. Reshevsky's talked about it for years. When he's felt ready to be an NHLer, he would like to come over to the NHL at some point. The thing with the Russian guys, it's so hard to tell what's misinfo, what's true, what political things are going to come into play out in Russia. Like, it's just one of those things. But I do buy the idea that Reshevsky could be a top 6 player the way he plays in Russia, which would be a huge asset to bring over on an entry-level deal. But it's also an interesting piece at this deadline. And that's what's exciting right now is there's just so many things going well between the first place team in the league and a lot of their farm system. Colby Barlow's heated up, and we heard his name in rumors. I'm excited about that news today. They just have so many good things going in their forward prospect base that there's not going to be enough roster spots moving forward, that now's the time to, make some decisions on those guys. And it sounds like the Jets have made a decision on one of their first rounders, and I think they've made the right decision on the right guy they're trying to shop in Colby Barlow.
Yep, I totally agree. You've got those lottery tickets. You don't know what's going to cash out, but if you've been able to get some national attention on them, plus the fact that you're the first place team, you're not chasing. You're not as desperate, right? You can look at it and go, hey, we can wait. So, yeah, they've got the forward prospects that they can move. They've got the picks that they can move. Like we've talked about, we're not taking off the main roster unless it is for a groundbreaking, move that's coming with term and all those type of things. But if we're just looking at the rental market, yeah, the Jets have more than enough capital to go out there and spend. They've got the cap space. There is no hindrance right now for the Jets to not add. Now, if those ads only end up being depth ads like Jen Botterill suggested, again, I'm going to be real. I'm going to be real disappointed because I feel like this group deserves, some better reinforcements than that. But yeah, this is the time, I think, for a big swing.
And I really do think it's coming. I continue to be entrenched in the idea that something's coming. And the beautiful part about this time of year, we get new rumors daily. So you could come to this show and we're going to be discussing different things. I don't want to dive into the combos. That's why I said go listen to the Shen podcast. There's new stuff coming the closer we get to the deadline. And let's talk about some of that. Where did this Colby Barlow thing come from? It came from David Pagnotta, who jumped on Winnipeg Sports Talk after writing an article talking about this. And it was really interesting to hear him talk. He's heard 2 different trains of thought, and I think both make sense. I think Chevy's working 2 trains of thought. He was saying he's heard a lot about them looking for depth, especially defensive depth, which I think makes sense. We've been talking about getting someone to fill that spot on the third pair. Ideally, Logan Stanley, we know it'll be Colin Miller, but we've been talking about that. But what I found really interesting was him starting to talk about that the Jets are looking for something with term out there, something a bit bigger. And the way he was describing this on Winnipeg Sports Talk, I don't have a quote handy on me. Here's where I arrived at. Here's where I think the Jets are looking at this deadline based on the public reports we're getting. If you go listen to the David Pagnotta piece on Winnipeg Sports Talk, my takeaway was that they're looking for a depth D ad, which I imagine would probably be a rental. And they're looking for a top 6 forward, either a center or a wing, with term as the big ad, which also plays the role of Nick Ehlers' insurance. And the way Pagnotta was describing what he's heard, that is my takeaway, and I'm hoping that's accurate because that would be a hell of a way to amplify what is going on here.
We've gone back and forth so much over the course of the year on where the big ad should be, right? Should the big ad be a depth or a long-term piece on the back end? Should it be a long-term piece, at 2C or 2 wing? It's interesting to hear that if they're leaning towards adding the forward piece more than the defensive piece as the big signing. And like I said, we've gone back and forth so often on it, but I'd kind of settled into wanting to see the big name come on the back end, to be honest. I kind of wanted to get Josh Morrissey, that big name player that they could go out and dominate half of a playoff game each week. So it's interesting that but again, that's the harder one to trade for, right? There's going to be less of that out there. It's going to cost you a lot more. Those deals are going to be more difficult to make, but if you get creative with it, there are some names that fit real nicely for what the Jets want. So that's interesting. I don't hate that way of going at it. I'm just, that's super interesting. How do you feel about that?
Hey, If you get one of the top 6 forwards or a top 4 D with term, I'm happy. Like, that is going to be a significant upgrade to this team. I think you want to look for certain things on the D. Like, it's safe to say they want size and aggression, especially for the net front, which I think is important, and it's why you get like the Luke Shen stuff. I do not want them to miss the boat on the fact that that D has to be able to move the puck. That has to be an aspect to whatever this D is as far as getting another puck mover. The Jets are still slack there, and that is an area when teams start to pick them apart, try and figure out how to beat them, that they could run into trouble. So I think it's important to get some size back there, but it better be that mobile beef we've been talking about as far as being able to actually move north. If you can get a top 6 forward with term, and let's go through the names, and we've done them already. Buchnevich, no trade clause makes that tougher. Kyrou, Alex Tuck, officially being out there by, what's his name at Sportsnet, Kiprio says that in what he's heard, Alex Tuck is no longer in the future plans of the Buffalo Sabres. And who's the name I've continued to go back to if he becomes available? I believe the Winnipeg Jets took a shot last year at Alex Tuck before pivoting to Tyler Toffoli. That's a name to really watch here. He carries an extra year at 4.35. He only has a 5-team no list for his trade clause. And I would think if you're someone that's been stuck in that Buffalo spot and you only got a 1 year left, I would have that's one of those situations that I'd have trouble imagining him not being willing to come. Only gets to pick 5 teams.
Yeah, only gets to pick 5 teams. You've got only 1 more year after this one, and you'd be coming to a first-place team to take a shot at a deep playoff run. I can see that being an okay one for him. Absolutely. That'd be a great ad if that's available now. Chevy better be on the phone.
And you know what else tells me Kevin Cheveldayoff is looking for that big swing right now?
Hit me.
When have we ever heard of a Winnipeg Jets top prospect being floated? Never. And all of a sudden, Colby Barlow, the next captain, it's going to be a funny piece of Jets lore at one point when this team was on the rocks there 2 years ago, and they had started selling the future between Barlow and McGrody. If both of those guys are no longer here and they actually catapulted the next step for this team instead, I do think the Winnipeg Jets management group is bang on to be trying to get out of Colby Barlow right now, especially with his heater. I do not believe Colby Barlow is going to be a top 6 level NHL player. I think Barlow was ahead of his peers because he clearly matured so much faster than everybody. And I think you're seeing the rest of his age group starting to catch up. And that's why you see the downside. He can't really skate at this level. He's got a pro level shot. Absolutely. If you could find a team willing to take that on as part of a piece, I think the Jets are nailing that as the prospect to move when you look at the other forwards in the system. But we've never, ever heard about them shopping a top prospect. That has been the antithesis of the Winnipeg Jets way. They're selling something.
Man, I'm still nervous. I'm still nervous until we see that notification come up, until those rumors finally break. Man, I'm nervous. They deserve it though. This is the group that deserves that big swing. So come on, Chevy.
Just sit back, be patient. Kevin Cheveldayoff cooking. He's not letting us down. This is the year. And Jason, I like to see this from Sportsnet too. I talked about a couple weeks ago how this has to be the year because where that cap's going, it's going to be harder and harder, realistically, for the Winnipeg Jets to be a salary cap ceiling team. Jason Bukala is starting to take that stance to the Sportsnet crowd, and I think that's good when you start to hear that on a more national level because it's true. This is the moment. I know the Winnipeg Jets have wanted to kind of play this middle ground where they're going to keep their system and they're always going to be competitive. It's going to get a lot harder. They're going to have to change some things about how they operate given where the cap's going to stay competitive. Now's the time to put a stamp on this and try and get yourself a Stanley Cup. There's just too much going right now.
There's too much going right, and this is your window with your first group, right? This is the Scheifeleys, the Lowrys, the Hellebuck. This is the group that they built, right? That Cheveldayoff and Mark Chipman have put together from their very beginning of being here. If you want to reward those guys, this is the time. You've got the opportunity. You've got the capital. Yeah, let's go. Let's see what they pull off.
On rumors, though, I want to address one here. Ryguy990 says, I was listening to Slang in the Biscuit, and they said Dylan Sandberg is on the block. I want to address this right here and right now. I'm sorry, but Dave Wheeler does not have sources around the NHL. And to even go public with the idea that the Winnipeg Jets are shopping their second best defenseman, who is an RFA, who him and his wife genuinely appreciate this market, is absolutely stupidity. That podcast, don't take anything they have to say for granted. All you got from that was a bullshit rumor and his dumbass co-host and Travis Ridgen, who has to be the biggest moron behind a mic these days, going at Sandberg's wife. And I don't know if anyone saw it, but Sandberg's wife really dunked on him after, and it was great to see. People like that, don't even take them serious. That's not happening. I will tell you right now, there is a 0% chance the Winnipeg Jets are shopping Dylan Sandberg. 0.
Yeah,
Those guys are
bananas.
morons. Absolute morons. Don't take them serious. 0. It was one of the dumbest clips I've seen. I went off on it at that. Like, it was just so stupid. So we got to be careful with sourcing. Let's keep it to some of the real guys in the game. Kevin Kowalik says, need a top line trade deadline live show, and you're going to get one. We're going to go live on deadline day. We'll be here to chop it up with you guys. I can't wait. I'm excited for the deadline and excited to see where Kevin Cheveldayoff goes here. As Al Camino points out, failed DJ and failed junior B goalie is where I go to if I want the truth. Like, come on. Just stupidity. They're looking for clips. They're just looking for clicks and negative attention. It's not worth anyone's time. I'm just being real here. And as Kim Sawchuk points out, Sandberg on the block, outrageous. Sandberg's wife is a dentist who loves it here. That family's going to be staying in Winnipeg.
That contract will be signed soon. It's not going to be an issue. We got nothing to worry about with that one. Don't worry about it. You can buy your Sandberg jersey. We're going to be happy. You're good.
And Des Sandberg, absolute legend, because what's his name? I can't even remember. I already forgot his name. The goalie, the failed goalie that pretends he played pro. He never even made the teams I played with when he was trying to. Back when we were in teens, man. He's that guy's dog shit. But was like preaching for Dylan Sandberg to get his wife off of TikTok, and his wife responded, and absolute queen shit. She goes, first of all, to Dave Wheeler, have you even watched the Winnipeg Jets game this year? And then she was addressing Ridgen, and she goes, yep. I am a wife of a hockey player, but guess what I do Monday to Friday? Doctor. So start calling me doctor before you address me.
Fuck
Love
yes.
that shit. Love that stuff.
Hell yeah.
The content game was lit this week. So yeah, I'm glad that came up because I've been wanting to go off on that shit. To go after a player's wife, absolutely stupid. To make up bullshit about the second best defenseman on the team being on the block, not worth anybody's time. Not worth anybody's time. But let's get back to some of the hockey I know Max is silent has a name here that we hadn't brought it up on some of those wingers. Bjorkstrand. If Seattle's got to do something here. Yep. Seattle's got to do something. We've talked about McCann. Oliver Bjorkstrand as a guy that takes that Appleton spot in the top 9 is something sexy to me as well.
Absolutely. He fits real nicely with what Lowry and Nino do on that line. And the offensive game that he brings as an upgrade to Apples would be perfect. That's exactly what you want in that spot. McCann, obviously, we've talked a lot about being an option. Would fill a lot of the Jets' problems in the top 6. So, yeah, Seattle's a great spot to keep an eye on. What do you think the Flames are going to do? Are the Flames going to? They've fallen out, right?
The Flames have started to fall out. Reality is starting to hit the Calgary. They're currently they're second wild card right now with Vancouver 1 point behind, Utah 3 points behind. I think, and the crazy thing is, there's only 7 teams in the West with a positive goal differential.
Yep.
And Calgary is not one of them in that A spot at a -14. One of them or Calgary or Vancouver is going to get in. And that's another reason I think keeping this going and coming number 1 is so important. If you can get a Calgary or Vancouver instead of a Colorado Avalanche round 1, changes the entire pathway for this team to a level that gets me far more hyped on where this can go.
I know I'm in the minority, but I want Colorado in the first round. I want to
I know you do.
want them. I want to knock them out in the first round. I want that for the Jets. Put that in their as locker room material to go out and say we whooped their ass after what they did to us. I know. I like it. As in what the chat is saying. How do you feel about some one-stop shopping over in Long Island as well?
Hey, any of these one-shop shops, like we've talked about, Buffalo's a team to watch.
Yep.
The Islanders are a team to watch. The Flames, if they fall out, are a team to watch. The team to watch this summer, and this is where it gets interesting. There was one comment last time when we had the technical difficulties I didn't get to answer. And I don't remember who to credit, but someone had asked me about my thoughts on EP40. So I did want to talk about that because obviously I was saying if this guy's available, you got to do it. It's starting to look like the Vancouver Canucks are staring down the barrel of a rebuild this summer where it's a new GM, new president, likely looking to get out of that EP40 contract before July 1. I've changed my mind on how I look at that situation based on where his play has gone as well. It's starting to look like a lost season for my boy, which is just, it's tough to say, man. That guy is, when he's on, he is a star level player, but it's looking like a lost season. I wouldn't want to bring in that risk right now. He was seen wearing a knee brace during warm-up last game, and the team's saying he's not hurt. Vancouver doesn't have the best history with their medical team. You look at Tanner Pearson's career basically coming to an end because they misdiagnosed him for 2 years. Brock Besser's wrist. Demko's consistently not knowing what's going on. I think he's the type of player that needs a reset, needs to get healthy, and you look to acquire him in the summer with a fresh start next year. So I did want to address that because someone did ask about that last show, and I know I was hyping him up, but I've changed my tune there just from an in-season perspective. The Jets still would be in a pretty decent position in the summer. Depending how the playoffs go, maybe you want to go get that impact ad in the summer, and that could be a situation. But that's another team this summer that's going to be really interesting to watch in the West, because I think the days of the Vancouver Canucks, they were a one and done, and they're going to be losing all those guys.
Yeah, and the real nice appeal on EP in the middle of the season was, they still had the fight going on with Miller. You can maybe take advantage of a bad situation and get, a star player at a bit of a discount. Now that they moved on from Miller and you've got all the health issues going on, it feels much more like something to look at in the summer if they decide to go down that route, because it's just a bad situation overall in Vancouver. You know that he has the skill, you know that he has the track record of being able to do it. So a big name like that would be absolutely perfect for this team, but it's something we can look at in the summer.
And I see Bullsy over on Twitch had asked about that as well. So, hey, good timing. I had missed that first. Big Papa brings up another name that intrigues me. We talked about Scott Lawton last show where I said I wouldn't want to pay the price for a guy that I don't think really upgrades. Like, he would be a top 12 forward in Winnipeg, but, like, he's on that fringe. And I think the Jets' depth is pretty damn good where I wouldn't pay a second round plus to add a guy like that. But if you're looking at those level of players, it came out that Trent Frederick asking price is a low second, and Big Papa brings him up. If you're looking for a center like that, I prefer Trent Frederick a lot more than Scott Lawton for this team.
Yep. Absolutely agree. I wouldn't want Lawton, not for the price that they're going to have to pay to go get him, because he would just be another body. He would just be another body for the run. So if you can go out and get a Frederick at a low second-ish price, it's not too bad. Him and Gus will have to go out for some beers and, have a hug to put some, bury the hatchet. But besides that, I think it'd be a good ad.
For sure. We got a call. Let's go to it, eh?
Right on.
Let's see if it works.
Hey, caller. Thanks for holding. You're on the landing strip.
Hey, Mikey, Nik. It's Brendan. I'm hoping your phone lines are working better than they were last time I called.
Oh, I can hear you loud and clear, Brendan. How you doing tonight? Oh, can he not hear
me? Can you guys hear me?
Oh, sorry. 1 sec. Yep.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
We can hear you. Nik, you can't hear Nik for 1 quick sec. My bad. Sorry about that, guys.
Oh,
no worries,
good.
No worries. While that's getting fixed
really,
up,
I just wanted to get Nik's thoughts on some stuff. I know we've been talking about wanting to get another top 4 defenseman, just to push Neil Pionk or DeMello down to a lower pairing. But in my mind, I think even though we have more left-handed D, I would prefer to see us go after a lefty, somebody that can play in the top 4, but pushes Stanley out of the lineup, mainly because when we don't have Morrissey or Sandberg in the lineup, you really see a drop-off in the defensive play. I mean, like, look at the record with Sandberg in the lineup, without Sandberg in the lineup. Look at how we played in the playoffs in 23 against the Golden Knights after Josh went down with that injury. I mean, we don't have the guy right now to really take over that side, and I would feel better about a Colin Miller having to step up into a top four role than I would seeing a Logan Stanley, a Hayden Fleury, or even a Ville Heinola taking up a step up into that spot. And I don't think any of those guys are really viewed as top four defensemen, and I wouldn't want them in that spot.
All right. Thank you, Brendan, for the call. And I like where you went.
Thanks, guys. I'll hang up and listen. Have a great night.
Thanks, Brendan.
Have a great night. Have a great night, Brendan. And this takes me, I want to go to that email from Mike Friesen. We're going to bring in the fan line to answer this question because I do think we're all on the same page here. And I think Brendan makes a lot of great points. And Mike was listening to our show when I was hyping up the idea of getting Jake Wallman, who is a top four level D-man that would be playing on your third pair. So that gives you the Morrissey coverage, that gives you the Sandberg coverage. And it also, as Mike puts it here, I'm just going to read it out. The whole point of the experiment, and we all know what the experiment is to have him for the playoffs. They're giving him as much runway as possible between now and then. I think they like seeing DeMello and Stanley together because that's how they see their third pair if they were to get a Parayko type. I think they want to have one big D-man on each pair. Colin Miller does not count. Best case scenario is his leash as a third pair left-handed defenseman is actually till the trade deadline, and they cut bait and go get a guy like Wallman who gives you an opportunity to not throw Josh Morrissey out there 30 minutes down the stretch as you're gearing up. Like, he would add a lot more to what you can kind of do with your D-core. And I do think Mike is ultimately right. I mean, it is no secret that Logan Stanley is the fifth on this team. If you were to want to eliminate him, it's going to take two D-ads. As far as how this team's looking at this right now, I think Mike gets a lot right there. I mean, Scott Arniel is the D coach that threw him in 2 games before the playoffs last year and played him for the first 3 before getting pulled. So I think you would have to get 2 for us to get what we want until he really fails, which is a tough thing. And he got a jacket tonight, and I think it's a fair night. I see the chat talk about it, that Logan Stanley got a jacket tonight. And I think rewarding a guy like that who's had a lot of tough nights on a night where he was fine is more than okay. That's a sign of a good team that cares about each other. I like to see that kind of stuff, no matter what my thoughts are on whether he should be in the lineup. I think it's another good thing. But, yeah, I'm completely with the caller on getting a top 4 level left-handed D that could provide the insurance in case someone goes down, but play on your third role and really elevate that.
Yeah, that's I think the right way to go about it. Kevin Kowalik on over on YouTube says Wallman would be perfect. He can log huge minutes and win them. And I agree. I've come to really like Jake Wallman for exactly that kind of role, that kind of spot. That'd be a depth add. It's not going to be the big name, which sounds like that's where they want to go. Yeah, absolutely. And that's I think a perfect price for that type of player. So yeah, I'm with Kevin over on YouTube. Jake, sign me up for a Jake Wallman type. And the thing with Stan, yeah, I'm really hoping that 2 ads does push him, down and out where we've got good enough players above him and they're going to get the size that they want throughout the lineup. Otherwise, we've seen that's that's going to be kind of his spot until they get that extra size there, because Scott Arniel's been clear. He hasn't beaten around the bush with it. He hasn't been cagey with it. He's told us, I like the size. I like the size back there with Logan on that pairing. And that's been the way that it's gone. So it'll be interesting to see what Chevy does. Does he try to take the toy away from Scott Arniel by bringing in guys with the bigger size? That'll be interesting to see.
Before we we've talked a lot about external ads, and we're going to continue to as this week ramps up. We got an interesting tidbit from Elliot Friedman this week when he jumped on a Sportsnet radio hit on Sportsnet 590, I believe it was. And Friedge was talking about the idea that right now the Winnipeg Jets are actively working with some of their UFAs
All right, we're back.
We are back. Are we back online?
Yep, we're back.
Hey, we're back. Sorry about that, folks. Mikey's PC decided to shit the bed in the middle of the podcast here. As I was saying, and hey, I gotta say, thanks for stopping by. And honestly, I appreciate it. Gilbert Marions, he's making fair comments. I appreciate the chat coming to our back. But hey, we've had a bit of a Bush League week. We're working on it. We're gonna get the tech back. We're gonna get this back figured out. It's been a tough week, but appreciate you everyone sticking around. Appreciate y'all defending myself and saying some nice things about the pod. We got overheated with excitement. The PC couldn't handle it. So we left off at Friedman jumped on Sportsnet 590 and was discussing the idea that the Winnipeg Jets are currently actively working on some of their free agents. And they specifically mentioned Neil Pionk. Frosty says, I like these built-in pee breaks.
We did it for you, Frosty.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. But that was concerning to me that he is the priority right now. It feels like an unforced error for Cheveldayoff at a time when I would just wait until this season plays through. This is a guy that has struggled in the playoffs. I don't want to rush into that deal, and I'm pretty nervous about it right now.
Yep, totally agree. It's an easy spot for them to make a mistake, and I really hope they don't.
But and it's also why I think actually it plays into my thought as well that they're going to be looking for a forward with term and a D rental. If they're planning on signing Pionk, you're not going to have room moving forward for an expensive D with term. Also, Elias Salmonson continues to cook in the AHL. Another 3-assist night today for the Winnipeg Jets' best prospect. The longer this season's gone on in the AHL, I think the more and more we can expect that he's going to make an impact in the NHL next year on a depth pairing. So that's going to be an interesting one. I'm hoping we don't see it. My vibes are too high to get down on a Pionk extension right now, but it just can't happen.
No. I'm still in the camp that he's going to get a huge cash in on that free agent market. It's every player's dream, you know. He's the talk of the town. He'll be the prettiest girl at the dance. Let him go out there. Thank you for your service, Neil Pionk. We love you. The points are great. It's been fun watching you piss off the opposing teams. I can't wait to see you hoist the cup with the Jets this year, but then you can take that onto the open market and with a nice big payday.
I'll say this. I'm not sure if it'll be max term. I think it might be somewhere in the 5-year range if it gets done, which might help a little. But yeah, that's not a guy you want to be paying.
No.
Lucas Trapp loves to get on me with this kind of stuff. Loves to poke the bear and troll. Says Nick is forgetting Pionk versus McDavid in the COVID year, and I forget about it because it never happened. It is the worst narrative that came out of 3 TSN clips that they played all summer. Paul Maurice played Josh Morrissey and Dylan DeMello as much as he humanly could against Connor McDavid in that series.
Right.
And somehow they've lost all the credit to 3 clips on TSN. It drives me nuts. And I do think Max the Silent makes a good point. And this is part of why the Jets love the guy so much. Max the Silent says, I like the Pionk's vibes. I just wish he was good.
Yep.
And that's a guy that genuinely loves Winnipeg. Him and his family want to be here. So the Jets value all that stuff. I just think it's a pretty big unforced error, and that's going to be really unfortunate that he is the preferred guy. It feels to me like the reverse of the Buff Ladd thing. They prioritize Ladd. Maybe Pionk does the same thing and doesn't like the number, and you end up moving on to the Ehlers side of things instead. What's so fascinating to me about this whole dynamic is if you look at Ehlers and Pionk, and those are the 2 big free agents, I'd only call one of them worthwhile. The Winnipeg Jets on Pionk's current deal, which was 4 years at 5.95, have lost that contract, completely lost on the value of that deal. He has not played up to the nearly $24 million they paid for that value. And then you're going to go and actually pay bigger money into his 30s. You're setting yourself up for 9-10 years straight of a bad asset that you spent money on and kept giving it to. Whereas on the reverse of it, Nick Ehlers, despite our issues with them underplaying him and stuff and whatnot over the years, he's going to leave Winnipeg as one of the best value contracts the Winnipeg Jets got out of his tenure since they've come back. And it's just like the complete reverse psychology mentality you should be looking at trying to build the best team out under the cap. It kind of infuriates me. I got to be honest.
Yeah, you've got Ehlers who does more with less than maybe anybody in the league. And then you've got Pionk who you would be paying completely for past performance at position
And you're not
where
even doing that. And you're not doing that because
for 1 year you're going to be
worth it.
No, you're only be paying for it off of this season, right? Like it's just an easy spot to make a big mistake. And you know, like you said, the vibes on Neil Pionk are great, right? He loves it here.
Oh,
He's fun to watch on the ice with the offense, with the little bit of the, you know, pest that he's got in his game. He's a fun guy. I have nothing against him personally. Just when it comes to the business of the game, and if you're trying to find value, especially in a market where, like you said, we're not going to be a cap limit team going forward when these start getting really, really high, right? You need to start finding the value to make this work. And like, put Ehlers aside, who, like I said, is maybe the best value in the National Hockey League when it comes to the production that he gives you with that limited amount of ice. Paying for Pionk is just a bad investment. We see it all the time, over and over again. We have so much precedent to say that is not the guy that you want to sign long term. Let someone else make that mistake. I'm hoping, I'm praying.
You know what it really reminds me of? It's like they didn't learn on the failed playbook of 2019 to 2023 when they were trying to rebuild the core. Like they're going to redo the exact same mistakes that ended up having them overspend on D, block their best prospects, and end up in this mediocre spot where you want to get better.
Yep.
So that is a tough one. It's going to bother me. It's one of those deals where I believe on day one of the contract, before that ink is dry, it's a deal that's going to be underwater already. You're counting down the days till you buy it out. You're counting down the days until you're attaching a pick to move off of it. It's just bad money after bad money. And the Jets have a real opportunity with how much cap space they have moving forward. Don't shoot yourself in the foot, marrying yourself to this. And I think Slick McGuire asks a good question on this, saying, is it that he's bad or is that he's bad for his value? Pionk at $4 million wouldn't stress me out. And I think that's fair. I think the thing with Neil Pionk, he's really one of those 4 or 5 tweeners. In an ideal Stanley Cup roster, you want him being that offensive juggernaut in sheltered minutes on the third pair. The thing is, he's currently making $5.95 million, and he's got all the time on ice and points that tends to see guys get big money. So you're probably looking at $6.5–7 million for that guy, for a guy that can't carry and run a top 4 pair, a guy that's carried on that pair. It's a tough situation to put yourself in moving forward, especially with a guy like Elias Salmonson in his first year in North America, doing really well in the AHL.
Yeah, he looks completely comfortable playing the North American game. He's going to slide into that lineup hopefully sooner than later. And yeah, again, it's nothing against Neil Pionk as the person, as the player. It's just that what you're going to be having to pay to keep him here, he's not going to give you that value, especially going forward into his 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, right? Like, this is not where you want to be paying him 7 years at big money, because he's not going to take a discount. He's not going to take less than his current contract to stay.
Oh yeah, not from his current. Yeah,
right?
I can see him taking less than his open market worth.
And sometimes that happens. Players do it if they like the situation. I'm hoping that he doesn't end up doing that. I hope he wants to go out and get that full value on the open market. But for me, I wouldn't be happy paying him more than his current contract to stick around. And I know that's not realistic. So for me, that's why he's got to go. So yeah, it's not that he's awful and terrible. He's not Mark Stewart, but it's you can't be paying him, Josh Morrissey money.
And as Al Camino says, how long before Salo surpasses him on the depth chart on an entry level deal? Though I think the way the Jets would see that is DeMello is always going to be the one getting the demotion. I think Mike Friesen nails this over on Twitch. Mike understands how the Jets are thinking, both in that email and on this comment. The Jets will see it as Sandberg and Pionk are locking in their second pair for the next 5 years. And the problem with that is, if you're ever missing Sandberg, you go from having a really good second pair to a bottom pair that can't compete. And you just don't pay guys that can't carry that level of performance. It's the biggest mistake teams make in the NHL, and it would really bother me to see the Winnipeg Jets make the same one.
And we have direct evidence of it. We watched it happen this year with Sandberg getting hurt. We have the evidence to see what Pionk needs. That partner. It just is the way that it is. He needs that partner to be effective. and I don't want to be the ones to take the risk and make that big payment on him.
Lucas Trapp says, and if Ehlers got this number, I'd be out on Ehlers personally. I don't see him getting it. Lucas Trapp says, the hockey guy was just talking about Ehlers the other day and says he's on an incredibly cheap contract right now. He's one of the best surplus values the Winnipeg Jets have gotten, if not the best, on one of those deals.
Yeah.
If only they would have realized it, kind of thing. And he says he's going to get $10 million somewhere next season. I think he's going to come in the 8 to 9 range. I really do. Just because the time on ice and the fact that the team that knew him best never elevated him is going to decrease that value a bit. I saw a great tweet from that Rono analyst, those two twins that do the analytics.
Yep.
And they were talking about how Marner and Rantanen are getting all the headlines, and those are going to be like $13-14 million players in this free agency, and how Ehlers is going to be like a 9 or under. There's whoever signs Ehlers instead of those two, I think is making the better bet.
Is there
Just contractual value wise?
Oh,
I'm not saying he, but
yeah, not like-
contractual value wise.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what ends up happening, right? If so, say take Pionk's contract off the table. Say it, they make the decision, not the Jets. Like Pionk's camp makes the decision. We're going to free agency. We're going to test it. What's the number you'd be comfortable to sign Nick Ehlers to bring him back, or is there even a number you'd be comfortable, a realistic one?
I want, 8.5.
Yeah, you're comfortable still at 8.5.
The term aspect's going to matter, but yeah,
How much term are you going to give him? Would you go max?
that's where I have trouble.
Yeah.
I
So
think when
he's
his
gonna
legs
want it.
go, I know, and that's where I have trouble. Chevy's got an interesting task at hand. I'm not saying this is easy, but you don't spend bad money because that's what you have in house. You got to avoid this one.
If his camp wants 8x8, you signing it?
8's a little bit lower. I don't mind it
Right,
as much,
and
actually, especially
Take
with
that
the cap
extra
room.
half off on the AAV for the extra year.
Interesting. Tico Napoli, I'll bet you a beer you're wrong on that one. Tico Napoli says, Pionk lucky to sign 6.5 mil again. No way. Bet you it's coming.
I'm just hoping someone else gives him that 7.
But hey, we're going to be back. Let's go into the 3 stars. We got another show tomorrow.
Yep.
We'll dive into even more stuff tomorrow. Let's go into the 3 stars tonight and take off on this night. I'll let you kick this one off, buddy.
Right on. So it's gonna be a pretty simple one tonight. This was not the toughest game on the Jets. Number 3 star. You know what? I give this guy a lot of flack throughout the course of the year, but I thought he had a good game on the third line. Mason Appleton gets the goal. We got to see the type of game from him that he needs to be successful and what the Jets need. So I'm gonna put Apple to number 3. Number 2 star, I'm going to give it to Casey just for getting on the score sheet tonight. I love to see the goals. I know he's got to be a little annoyed that he's fallen behind in that goal race. So just for the goal alone, Kyle Connor, number 2. And number 1 will be no surprise. It's my guy. It's Cole Perfetti. Again, I just love seeing him finally racking up the points after, going on that stretch for a while where it was barren. So tonight was just for me about the fact that these guys finally are getting on the score sheet again, rounding back out into form. So those are my 3 stars.
Tico Napoli raises his to 2. So me and Tico Napoli hold us to this. I'm putting this out there. If Neil Pionk gets $6.5 million or more, Tico Napoli owes me 2 beers, and we'll link up at the end of the season for that. You know what I'm looking at doing, actually? I'm looking at getting together during the stretch run where we might get a lounge or a bar and try and get a crew out for a game and do a podcast there. So maybe it's something like that for Tico Napoli. But if it's under 6.5, I'll be buying Ticona a couple of drinks. I like that bet. I like
it's a
that.
safe one. I think it's a safe bet.
Yeah. 3 stars tonight. I'm gonna go. You know what? He had a solid game. He got a jacket. We spent a lot of time bitching about him. You know what? Logan Stanley. You can have a 3rd star on this night just for being solid.
That's a good one.
2nd star, I'm gonna go KFC, and first star, I'm going to go with Mark Scheifele on this night. He builds off that franchise record goal number. I think the last couple of games, Mark Scheifele's really stepped into something here where he does look like he's ready to take over games. And yeah, it looks like Teak Kona's going to try and get something set up for us. So let's get something going. We'll be back tomorrow night. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for being here. Absolutely love doing this show after every game. And it's all because of you, the audience. We'll be back tomorrow. You have a great night.
Right on. Good night, everybody.